Hi everyone, welcome to the box seat. Yes, we are back after a 6-month hiatus. We're really pleased to be back on trackside and of course on our other platforms. One thing that hasn't changed is Michael Guerin's part of the box seat team once again. Michael, great to have you on the show and looking forward to getting into what has been an incredibly busy and strange time over the last 6 months, but we're building into some of the busiest harness racing action both sides of the Tasman.
Yeah, hi Greg, it's good to have you back buddy, and great to have the show back. And to everybody in harness racing, congratulations on the battle we've all endured over the last 6 months. We know that COVID obviously has had far more serious repercussions than the economic repercussions on racing and harness racing, but man, it still took some surviving for us to all get through together. So much to talk about. We've got a really crazy time coming up. But Greg, first we need to tick off some of the amazing things that have happened inside our industry and the racing industry since we were last on air, which was March the 18th, I think.
Yep, almost 6 months to the day. We wouldn't be here, Michael, of course, if it wasn't for our wonderful family of sponsors, or stable of sponsors. And you're going to look at that and think, gee, there's a few people involved, but in order for us to be able to put the show back on air, we had to find support and have a look at the support that we've got there, Michael. A number of clubs getting involved, some of the biggest names in harness racing, Woodland Stud, who have been with the show for such a long period of time, and some new ones there like Garrards and Stonewall Stud and Stable. So without these people, the show wouldn't be possible.
Yeah, it's heartening to know that so many people in harness racing want the stories of harness racing to be told. How did this come about? Well, quite simply, since we've been away, there's been a huge change in the governance of New Zealand racing. So what was RETA has become TAB New Zealand. And TAB New Zealand's main mandate is to make as much money through gambling, obviously, as possible for the industry to then be distributed to the 3 codes. Because of that, their main focus is on driving turnover and not so much on promoting the industry or shows or magazine shows or reviews. So everybody needed to take that on board and then say, hey, if we want these shows, or if we want stories in the newspaper or engagement online or clubs to promote things, Greg, they have to do it themselves. So everything's changed. So for something like this to come about, we've needed to say to people in the industry, does this matter to you? The answer from that family of sponsors is it does. It's a rapidly changing landscape, Greg, and it does take a bit of getting your head around. But the fact is, I can think that the administrators in all 3 codes are now starting to say, okay, theoretically we're going to get more money from TAB New Zealand, so the responsibility for this sort of stuff comes back to us. It also comes back to, Greg, some of the bigger names in the industry. We do appreciate those people for giving us the chance to tell the stories we're going to tell over the next 33 weeks.
The case for this show, though, was what to leave out, so I thought we'd better go back and have a look at many of the things, particularly around our feature horses, the open class paces and trotters. But some of the things that have unfolded over the last 6 months, well, effectively, our last show was on the 18th of March, as you quite rightly pointed out. This was an interesting one, Michael. The last meeting prior to the COVID lockdown was Forbury Park at Wingatui on the 21st of March. Significantly, Peter Jensen stood down as CEO on the 19th of May, Michael, and that had a big impact on the leaders of our industry.
It did. Peter did a great job at Harness Racing New Zealand. Look, he decided this wasn't for him anymore. I admire him for having the courage to make that choice. Then we ran into no Derby, no Oaks, no Jewels. It was a really tough time during that lockdown period where many people watching this show couldn't even train their horses, and you started to wonder, when's all this going to come back? Well, the answer was the 28th of May at Addington, and a lot of people worked really hard to make those things happen behind the scenes, and conversations you'll never hear about, but some really intense work between the TAB and Harness Racing New Zealand and the clubs made that happen. What was also intense, Greg, and really heartening was the fact that the junior drivers could put together their own drivers' championship, Greg. They said, this is important to us. We know there's no money in the kitty. but we're going to make this happen. And Greg, I thought that was one of the heartwarming stories of racing's winter of discontent.
Yeah, you're not wrong there, Michael. We'll hear a little bit later on too from John Denton from Addington Raceway about what they went through with them racing twice a week effectively at Addington Raceway and having almost a full season of racing over a 3-month period. Harness awards were held as well, and a number of significant medals, if you like, were handed out with those, and they were held Monday week ago. Michael, it was a battle in a number of the categories, and just to have the awards themselves, and we've got some footage here of what unfolded on the night. Of course, there was no ability to shake hands. There was the People's Choice winner, Ricky May, John Morrison, Junior Driver of the Year, of course. So a terrific effort by him, and a number of the other awards that were handed out, including the Harness Horse of the Year, which was Ultimate Sniper.
Yeah, the awards, Greg, were like so many things in 2020. You just had to make do and do the best you could. It wasn't the big party we're used to. I was a little bit surprised. Amazing Dream got as close as she did to Ultimate Sniper. It was 11-10. I'll be honest, I voted for Ultimate Sniper. 2 dead heats. One change, dead heated with Copy That. I actually voted for one change. Greg then scratched it out and voted for Copy That. So it could have been either. I couldn't really make a decision there, and either could the other voters, 11 all. And Cracker Hill versus Ultimate Stride, also a dead heat. That's a bit of an entree to what we're going to see for those two horses and Bolt for Brilliance heading forward. That's one of the exciting storylines to come out of this last 6 months, is the emergence of the 4-year-old trotters who are going to race as 3-year-old trotters next month. Greg, that's what a weird time it's been that we're still having, for example, the 2-year-old Harness Million this Friday, even though the horses are 3. But at the moment, Gregory, almost nothing seems unusual. No,
you're not wrong there, Michael. I noticed the Otago Awards were held last Friday night. I think there were too. And the Horse of the Year there was Ultimate Stride, and it was dominated by the Williamsons, Phil the trainer, and of course Matthew the driver, which was not surprising at all. The IRT Road to the Cup is well and truly underway, and I thought it was appropriate, Michael, that we go back and have a look at some of the things that have been happening, because we now have almost equal favourites. They've had a turn each at being favourite. Self Assured, of course, dominating early on in the south, and Copy That in the north.
One of those things we did expect, and one we didn't. Self Assured, Auckland Cup winner, probably the best horse in the country, with Ultimate Sniper in the paddock and still coming back, or not in the paddock, but in the paddock at the start of the season. I don't think anybody was surprised by Self Assured dominating. What surprised more was how dominant he was. Copy That, though, was $26 to win the New Zealand Cup on November the 10th, and he has just been absolutely ruthless since. Now, a couple of the wins were just down to speed. This is one of the first ones back on August the 6th. He just blew them away for speed. But, Greg, we saw him mature through this process and show toughness and show manners, and at the moment, it's hard to find any reason why you wouldn't support him for the Cup. Here's a question for you, Gregory, as we come back to his standing start manners. That's him 1 on the 10 metres. He'll be off the outside of the front line this week, but these manners are important. Gregory, when will be the last time we had a North Island trained favourite for the New Zealand Cup?
Probably Changeover when he won. I think he might have been favourite. I'm sure he was favourite. Do you think I'm right, or have you got another one for us?
I have absolutely no idea. I was hoping you would know. No, here is Copy That. He's $2.50 at the moment, and this showed real stamina to get over the top of Chicken on this occasion. But Greg, a couple of things are key here. He keeps getting better, and we'll talk more shortly about the fact that Self Assured is now on the unruly, which means you put Self Assured in front of Copy That, I think he probably beats him. But Copy That, this horse here in the green, could well be in the Cup ahead of Self Assured. And Greg, that's one of the reasons the market has changed. I spoke to Matt Purdon, the head of the TRB bookies on the harness, and he said, we can't ask self-assured punters to take the same price as 2 weeks ago, because quite simply he's going to be starting off what's basically a handicap in the Cup.
Yeah, well, Ray Green has said about this horse, this will be a horse people will be talking about in decades to come, and Maurice McKendry, his North Island driver, has been blown away by his speed. 54.4 his mile rate last time, Michael, and looking forward to seeing him on Friday night. And I think he deserves to be favourite now for the reasons that Matt Purdon pointed out, and we're going to have a look at some of Self Assured's performances now, and in particular his standing start manners, because he's had 4 runs this time in, 3 of those from the stand, Michael, and he's yet to step away cleanly, which is a major concern. And now he's on the unruly, he's effectively giving the others a start.
What's more of a concern, Gregory, is the fact he's getting worse. First time he bobbled away, next time he was about a 20-metre gallop, last time he galloped for 50 metres. So he's had to go back on the unruly, and he's running out of options and chances to come off the unruly. So, Greg, he's trending the wrong way from the standing start, but that's the only problem. Everything else about him is awfully sexy, but yeah, he's gone from being a horse who a month ago you thought, how will they beat him in the Cup, to thinking maybe he'll beat himself.
Yeah, he got as short as $1.95. So let's have a look at some of his issues and some of his brilliance as well. Here's his standing start manners, and you just don't like to see steps there. He got his first couple of steps in, Michael, but then once he galloped, took him an awfully long time to come down. But like you said, this is earlier on. This is back on the 31st of July, so effectively was his first standing start. Since then, things have progressively got worse, but he then just picks them up. Look, he went straight past Princess Tiffany here, Michael, like, well, she wasn't the open class mare she is.
Yeah, there's no doubt the motor is superior to the motor of the horses in the South Island, and maybe it's superior to all the horses. Maybe he's a better horse than Copy That, because let's not forget the horse of the year is still not in the New Zealand Cup and won't be back in time for that, an Ultimate Sniper. But he's also beating horses here, and he's beating them easily after missing away, Greg, who aren't as good as the horses he's going to have to beat in the Cup. Cruise Bromac has yet to return. Spankum has yet to return. Copy That coming down from the north. Also 888, who's an Auckland Cup place getter, and maybe Mark Shard, who ran second in Inter Dominion. So I'm not placing too much emphasis, Greg, on that early season Canterbury form, because Classy Brigade aside, and he's been really fantastic, I don't think any other horse we've seen racing in Canterbury or the South Island so far this season could win the Cup. Classy Brigade can. We saw him run third in the race last year. We know Self Assured can win. I don't think any other horse we've seen in those lead-up races is going to be under $20 on the day.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with that at this stage. Let's have a look at the first automatic entry race, the Morris Holmes Vase. And here's the all-important start again. And, well, he never looked like taking a pacing step there once the tape released. He then came down relatively quickly, but he did settle last, and we'll roll this tape on. There's Classy Brigade making his customary very good beginning, and DiCaprio, who won a great race and has gone great races so far. He's a big hope in a race like the Methven Cup. But as they turn for home, Mark Purdon had gone back to the fence, Michael, lobbed onto the back of Princess Tiffany, drops the whip right about here, and comes home regardless to win this as well.
Yeah, I think this is another example of what we've spoken about. He's better than these horses, and if you run these races 1,000 times and he gets away with them, he'll probably win it 1,000 times. So I'm not getting too carried away by the fact that he wins so well, because I know he's better than them. But again, this was the second of the standing starts. Gregory, the third of them, coming up, gets worse, and it gets to be basically fatal to his chances. He disappears and is out of the race. That's the bigger concern, because if we're thinking Classy Brigade and we're going to see him jump to the front and is a 353 horse or a 354 horse for 2 miles, and Self Assured's going to be 2 or 3 seconds behind him in the New Zealand Cup, Greg, he's going to be a 350 horse. Now, he can beat Classy Brigade giving him 20-metre start. We saw that in that video. Can he beat Copy That sitting on the back of Classy Brigade, giving him a 20 or 30 metre start? That's the question now for New Zealand Cup punters.
And you put a couple of questions to Mark Purdon, particularly around the Hannon, which we'll get to shortly. We're doing this in chronological order, but let's hear from Mark Purdon about his open class stars.
Well, Mark, there's a lot going on at the moment, and obviously we had 2 horses pulled out of the Hannon on Sunday, and Self-Assured and Spankum's return. Are we expecting them to be fine heading forward? No long-range concerns for the New Zealand Cup punters?
No, I don't think so, Mick. Our farrier Kerry spent a little bit of time on them and got them shot up really nice, so that a couple of minor little issues with their feet I think will be resolved with that shoeing, and we should be just boxing on from here.
Reports came out last week that Princess Tiffany is going to head to Australia for at least a month campaign, and another Masterpiece might go for a bit longer, but Ashley Lopez is going to come back the other way.
Yes, he is. At this stage we haven't finalised arrangements for a flight to get him to Melbourne to contest the sprint and the Victoria Cup, but we'll make plans when we know what we can do, but at this stage he'll be coming back for the New Zealand Cup.
Is there any chance there's going to be a late nomination for Ultimate Sniper for the New Zealand Cup, or just to put this to bed for once, Mark, is he absolutely not racing in the Cup?
No chance at all, Mick, so if you can get odds, grab them.
And great to have that insight from Mark Purdon last Friday night at Alexandra Park. Spankum at the trials today, Michael. And I suppose in many ways he's the forgotten horse because we haven't seen him in such a long time.
Well, we know he can go close to winning a cup. He ran second last year. He won a Miracle Mile. So he's better than most of the horses you've seen in those videos. I'm not saying he's better than Self-Assured or Copy That, but that's going to add some more depth. Cruz Bromac, the defending Cup champion, who's a totally forgotten horse, is heading to the Victoria Cup on October the 10th, and then he's coming back to join the All-Stars. So, as I said, Greg, there's a couple of really big names yet to come back. That sent a bit of a tremor through the markets last week when Self-Assured and Spankum came out of the Hannon. Mark's pretty confident it's not a big deal, and Greg, because the lead up to the Cup is a lot longer this year, in a normal year where often they don't race to mid-September and have 3 lead-up races, it'll be a big deal. But this year, where they're still going to get 3 or 4, not as big a concern. For Spankum though, Greg, we also want to see that he's the same horse as last year. We're being told that, looks like it at the workouts, but we've got no proof. So it's very much a wait and see with Spankum. But I almost feel sorry, Greg, for Classy Brigade, because we're talking a lot about horses who are doing things wrong, whereas he's doing pretty much everything right.
Yeah, he absolutely is, and he took out the Avon City Ford New Brighton Cup, of course, still running under COVID situations. Here's the start, and this is what you were talking about before, Michael, and Self-Assured. This time it was terminal. He was out of play, and the multi-punters on the night got absolutely hammered here.
Still galloping out the back.
Yeah, they did, and there's Classy Brigade going to the lead, and God, he's just a wonderful horse. What a great job Robert and John Dunn have done with this horse. Of course, Blair Orange driving him. He won't be driving him in the Cup. He'll be on Copy That, so I would probably suggest John Dunn would be back on Classy Brigade as he was at Oamaru last week. He's a wonderful horse, Greg, because he's had all sorts of issues. He's raced a lot of great horses over a long period of time. He could have been in the US by now had he passed some vets and got on a plane, but he just keeps on turning up. Ran 3rd in the Cup last year. No reason to think he can't run at least a placing in it again, Greg. I get the feeling that unless Copy That's and Self-Assured's and maybe even Spankum are a touch unlucky, Classy Brigade maybe can't win a New Zealand Cup. But then again, 2 years ago I would have said he can't do what he's doing now.
Yeah, remarkable when you consider he ran second to Lazarus in a derby, that he's still racing at the absolute elite level. And you're right about the Dunns getting him to his peak. Gee, they've done a great job with him, as they did leading into the 83rd running of the Hannon Memorial, run last Sunday. He actually didn't begin as quickly as what he had done in his previous 2, Michael. Didn't matter though, because eventually he rolled to the front, and once he got there, it was effectively race over. There's the Star of the South, You May Collect. He hasn't quite got it right in 2 starts today.
With Classy Brigade, Brigade, the great thing he's got now is respect. Most people expect him to work his way to the lead, and most of these horses aren't good enough to park him. Here he is. This was always going to be him having a win once he led. Robin's Playboy was really good. So was Tango Tara. AG's White Sox looks like a horse who needs some racing to get back to his best. And you may collect Gregory, absolutely no pot on him. He's just mentally and physically catching up. He's been away from the track for a long time. He's learning what he needs to do. Will he turn up in the Cup? I don't know. I hope he does. But he's on the back foot because he's got so little experience and probably so little base race fitness that he's going to need to improve in the next month, because it looks like most of the classy Brigade type horses, Greg, are just going to keep going these times week in and week out.
Those colours of Robert Dunn's there, probably didn't touch on that enough at the Harness Awards when we looked at those before, Michael, but when you consider that Robert was licensed back in the mid-70s to win his first premiership, albeit in rather weird circumstances, it's still a notable feat, wasn't it?
It's remarkable. When you consider that the All-Stars domination is a once-in-a-100-year event, it'll never happen again. Robert and John, because John's been a huge part of this. I know his name's not on the stationery, but he's a massive part of this. This is a wonderful Dunn family victory, and I'm really proud of what they've achieved. Robert's had his setbacks in his career, but they went to the sales, Greg, 3 or 4 years ago and said, we're making a stand. We're not going to be bullied here. And that's starting to come through, and you're seeing the results of that. But then again, Classy Brigade also shows they can take older horses and work with them. And it's not just the paces anymore. We'll see later with Sunday Sun and Pretty Majestic, they'll become very powerful trainers of trotters. They are totally deserved as premiership winners for last season. COVID removed, it wouldn't have mattered, Greg. They still would have won.
Yeah, I agree with that. The IRT road to the Cup, I thought it was important that we went back over what's happened so far, but what's ahead, Michael? Because it is a different preparation. We start things this week with the Franklin Roofing Spring Cup out of Alexandra Park, and then it comes south and we go to Addington for the Lamb and Haywood Classic. You'll see the stakes of those races reduced Group 2 and 3 from 50 down to 47.5, Michael, and the Group 3s at 28,500, but we're well and truly getting deep into the road now.
We are, and the good thing is we have a lot longer story. If we've had issues in the last 3 or 4 years with the New Zealand Cup, it's been quite a staid build-up. There's tended to be very little in the North Island to get excited about, or sometimes nothing. So the North Island paces have let us down in the last 10 years, but now we have a good crop headed by a really exciting horse and big field numbers, so that's cool. In the south, some drama, Gregory, because if Self Assured had kept winning, we'd be like, oh, this is going to be another All-Stars win, and it'll be very blasé feeling about the south. But now there's some doubt, and that makes it really interesting. So I think it's one of the better Cup build-ups for a long time. It feels like the old days with Armalite and Bonnie's Chance and Hands Down, because we're seeing a lot more form from them. The crucial race is Ashburton, the Flying Stakes, because that's the most likely race, Greg, we're going to see the two favourites clash. It's tended to be the race in the last 5 years or even 10 years which has determined who starts the Cup favourite. If Copy That and Self Assured head to Ashburton that day, Greg, it will be that race again. It'll be the determining race.
Yep, it certainly will be. Let's have a look at the market for the Cup, and we will see that the favourite is the Northerner. Copy That, $2.50 ahead of Self Assured. Classy Brigade now $7. Spankham placed last year, as Michael said, $9. AG's White Sox with a couple of question marks there. That's our error, not the horses. $9 for him. Cruise Bromac, Michael, who starts this week in Australia, does take on a pretty handy sort of a field though, $9. More about that later in the show. And the Fixer, who is now with Regan Todd's been trialling up quite nicely.
Talk about forgotten horses. The Fixer won a New Zealand Cup a couple of years ago, and Regan does a great job. So whether he can get him back to that form, I don't know. Robin's Playboy deserves to be there. Ballamontana's got the ace this week in the Spring Cup. Barry Purdon suggesting he'll head there, but look, if she keeps galloping away or she can't beat some of these horses, maybe he'll change his mind. These horses are probably the second stringers. I think of the bunch you see there, 888 is probably the most likely to be a horse who could place in the New Zealand Cup, but plenty of depth when you talk, Greg, about the fact that, say, On the Cards and Jazzy Star and Star Galleria, who's run second in an Auckland Cup. When you talk about those horses, even Mark Shard, who's run second in an Inter-Dominion, Greg, if they are the horses who are going to be 100 to 1 in the Cup or 50 to 1 in the Cup, and they're going to be the horses who slot into slots 10 to 15, this is going to be a really good New Zealand Cup, Greg. And when you talk about everything that's happened in the last 6 months, and the fact we were racing for $7,000 and $8,500 stakes, and we weren't sure if any of these things were going to happen, it's remarkable that things have happened quite as well as they have. But I do need to ask you this question, because everything in our lives has this cloud of COVID over it. Now, you're working part-time for Addington. What happens, we're at level 1 at the moment where you are, and hopefully level 1 where I am shortly, so that's all good. What happens if there's COVID restrictions at 2 or 3 come New Zealand Cup time? And even if there's not at level 1, you were telling me the other day you think there'll be a greatly smaller crowd for Cup time. So can you expand on that a bit, please?
Yeah, I can. I spoke to Brian Thompson about it yesterday. Look, at level 1, we don't have any problems at all, other than the fact that it will be a reduced crowd. I'll give you an example of that, Michael. The Lindau Lawn this year will be capacity 2,000 as opposed to 3,000. Corporates are down about 20%. This is not a sales pitch at all, but if you're thinking of coming to New Zealand Cup Day, you need to pre-purchase your tickets, because I'm absolutely adamant, Michael, that it will be a sellout. In terms of levels 2 and worst case scenario 3, yes, the Cup will still be run, but obviously it'll have significant restrictions. At level 2, I think they're working on pods, maybe 9 or 10 pods of 100 people. They'll have to have their own areas. They'll have to have their own service people that obviously only serve them. There's a whole lot of things that need to be worked in and around those. So it's an evolving, ever-moving target, isn't it, at the moment? But
I need to ask you a question here, Gregory, because I'm asking on behalf of other people. Say I'm an owner who has a horse in the New Zealand Cup, and I want to book my fares to come from Southland or Auckland or even Australia, if you're that way inclined, if you can possibly get into the country. Will they be given preference? For example, if I've got a horse in the New Zealand Cup, will someone who bought a hospo ticket or me be given preference to go watch my horse? Or in fact, if I've got a horse in the trotting race, which is first on the card, how does all that work? Because I think a lot of people are keen to book to go to Christchurch, Greg, but they don't want to not be able to go to the races.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can't predict what's going to happen levels-wise, but I'll tell you what we will do, Michael. I'll get Brian Thompson at Addington on Friday night, and he can explain it in a little bit more detail. The last thing I think we want to do is scare people into thinking they might not be able to go. It's a very valid question, but let's get it from the man himself, and we'll get that for next week's show, and he can give a detailed description of what could happen at levels 2 and 3, and everything will be on their website. It's been an incredibly challenging time for Addington Raceway, so much so that I wanted to talk to their property and facilities manager, John Denton. Did that last Thursday night at Addington Raceway, so here's his update. John, COVID's provided many challenges for pretty much everyone. I'm picking that's been the same for Addington.
Yeah, very much, Greg. Obviously, you know, the whole country's been under a lot of pressure with COVID, and hence the reason there's 4 clubs that raced during that COVID period. So, yeah, Addington was one of them, and we had a lot of commitments to make sure it was right.
Basically, over a 3-month period, you've had a season's racing, so that in itself, I'm sure, has provided plenty of challenges.
Yeah, huge challenge. We've gone from pretty much racing to 42, 44 meetings a season to pretty much 30-odd meetings within the last 3 months. So we've basically had 3/4 of our season already, just over a 3-month period. With that, yes, it was challenging, but yeah, we've got by. Yep.
It's an all-weather track, but I'm sure that you prepare it differently for less racing, and also building into a Cup Carnival, the preparation's going to be different again.
Yeah, well, just prior to the winter months when we knew we were returning to racing, we resurfaced the track for a start off. We knew then that we were going to possibly be under a lot of pressure to make sure that we could have a track that was going to be available for two meetings, with only 1 day in between. Hence the reason we resurfaced the track, and with that going into the winter months, we probably put on more of the chip than the sand, and it has paid dividends. It's not probably everyone's cup of tea, but it's certainly helped us get through the season so far.
Real pressure on your staff because you had to turn the stables around pretty much 48 hours later and be ready to go again, so there would have been some long nights.
Yeah, pretty much just following a Friday night meeting, we have a crew come in and they'll start cleaning from pretty much 10 o'clock through to 3 in the morning. Didn't please one or two of them, but we had to do that to make sure the stables were clean, and so they aired out on the Saturday, then to return to racing on the Sunday.
And in the racing department, it's probably appropriate that we give Brian Rabbit, Deb de Gould and their team a huge rap because, they really put in 7 days a week pretty much through that whole period.
Yeah, a huge effort, absolutely phenomenal effort from Brian and Deb in particular. It was a big challenge for them. Once again, they've gone from, racing from once a week to twice a week, and to do fields. And then obviously with the COVID, there's a whole lot of logistics around that, just the people that have come on the course, making sure that we're ticking all the boxes there. So yeah, a big challenge, and well done to them.
All right, going forward, a lot of people at home, they want to know how many sets of plans are in place for the Cup meeting, because there are at least 3 or 4 that I've seen.
Yeah, there is. Look, there's a lot of balls up in the air of pretty much what is it going to be for Cup. We don't know at this stage, but we have plans going forward, whether it's in level 1, level 2 or level 3. Hopefully we're in level 1. Looks like we've got good news next week that we return to level 1. Let's hope it stays right through to Cup week.
Welcome back into your box seat with our family and stable of sponsors. A couple of things, if you want to give us any feedback, and I'm sure there's people out there that want to tell us how the show should be run, which is great, we need it. Boxseat@gmail.com, so boxseat@gmail.com, I think it is, at gmail.com, and at boxseatnz is our Twitter handle, so if you want to send us a message via that and tell us what you want on your show, because at the end of the day it is the industry's show. Also wanted to pass on my condolences to the family of Pete Bradley. He won't be a household name in harness racing, but gee, he was involved in a lot of horses. Carlos Bromack, Kensington Bill in recent times, enjoyed the harness racing game. He was a principal in the Canterbury area and did a big job mentoring a number of other principals, and he died suddenly, so to Trish and the family, our thoughts are certainly with you. Let's move on to the Majestic Sun Dominion, and we have a look at Heavyweight Hero and the way he dealt to the field in the Basildine. Here he is following Michael Majestic Man, who had to play bridesmaid again.
Look, this is a good performance because it's easy to underestimate how good a horse Majestic Man is. Second in an Inter-Dominion, second in a national trot. Could win any major race and not surprise. And Heavyweight Hero's gone straight past him. I don't think Majestic Man does himself many favours because he tends to race so hard. He doesn't tend to come back to Brad very well. But we always knew Heavyweight Hero had this motor, and clearly Greggy's had some issues with soreness and just a whole lot of stuff over a long period of time. So he's headed south from the Todd McFarlane stable to be beach trained by Bob, and he's racing on the grass this week. When you look at that, Greg, clearly he can win any major race. But I don't think there's a lot between 6 or 7 of these horses. Sunday Sun will see. Habibi Inter's not back yet. We know how good Winterfell is, although he's a different version, left-handed than right-handed. And then there's so many other horses like Cracker Hill and Ultimate Stride still to come into play, Greg. So love Heavyweight Hero. Great story. Great to see him back. I think he'll win on Sunday. But as for these open class trotters, Greg, yeah, it's a Rubik's Cube for punters.
Yeah, it certainly is, because his very next start, he got it wrong at the start, and he's normally a very good exponent from the stand, but Sunday Sun made an incredible return to the races. In fact, Michael, he hadn't won in 12 months this very race, but sectionally he was nothing short of outstanding. Home in 55.9, and when he's rolling like this, he is a picture of brilliance.
I think the best version of Sunday's Sun, and I don't say this lightly, is the best trotter in Australasia, because I know Tornado Valley's a really good horse, and I've got nothing but enormous respect for Cracker Hill, Ultimate Stride, Bolt for Brilliance. But that version of him, the version who won the Anzac Cup about 18 months ago, the version that won the Rowe Cup, I think that version would beat any other trotter in Australasia flat out off level marks. But we don't see it that often, Greg. If I knew that was turning up in the Majestic Sun Dominion, I'll be happy to back him. But I don't know what version's turning up for him, and that could change over the next month. So again, really interesting crop. Probably 10 horses could win the Dominion, Greg, without surprising us. The next step on that road, great to see the big grass tracks back. Methven was back last week. The Banks Peninsula Trotting Cup, one of those races that feels, Greg, like it's from another age. And that's really exciting because we didn't have all that grass track harness racing. Having grass track harness racing back with good horses this Sunday, that's something to warm the heart.
Yeah, it is. Remiss of me not to mention, of course, Heavyweight Hero smashed the national record formerly held by Ere I Come by 0.3 of a second. That was a great run and very good time as well. There was Sunday Sun, although outside the national record, who's actually held by Dr. Bones, which surprised me. I didn't think he owned that record, but there you go, 3:14.6. Let's go to Temporale, Michael, because he's just been a wonderful war horse for such a long period of time. And when he got the barrier draw and the markers here, they couldn't run him down.
He's a very similar story without hopples to Classy Brigade. Good young horse, of course he won a Rowe Cup at 4, then needed to head to a beach trainer to stay sound. Robert Dunn for one of them, this one's to Wallace and Hackett, and just keeps on turning up. I'm not sure Temporale is going to win the biggest races, much in the same way we spoke about Classy Brigade. But he can definitely place in any race, and he's very good at getting up on the marker pegs and saying, you chase me. And that could be the case at Alexandra Park this Friday night, where he's the old dog up against his former stablemate, Bolt for Brilliance. And pretty much like the paces, Bolt for Brilliance might be the self-assured of the story. Maybe he hasn't got the manners yet. So Temporale versus him, one of the interesting sidelights, chucking in Midnight Dash also, of Alexandra Park this week, and one of the first opportunities, Greg, to rate the older boys against the younger guns, because Ultimate Stride and Cracker Hill's had one start in the big grade, Ultimate Stride not. That's going to be one of the storylines of this new season for sure.
All right, the Dominion, if you were having a bet now, are you confident that Sunday Sun will be in that sublime form? Because if he is, he deserves to be favourite for that.
Not confident and too short. I spoke to Matt Purdon about that, and he said, look, we had a whole bunch of them at sort of $5.50 to $7, and we waited for somebody to do something, and Sunday Sun did that something. He has to be top pick for me anyway. He has to be top pick. Odd conversation with Mark Purdon last week. I said to him, have you given up on Winterfell? He said, I think we're winning the battle. You're watching a different battle to the one I've been watching, Gregory. What about you? I'll go Sunday Sun on top, but that could easily change in the next 2 weeks. What do you like in the Dominion?
Yeah, the best version, the right one, if he turns up. I think you have to be with him at this stage. Habibi Inter still interests me because of his demolition job that he put on them last year. That Banks Peninsula Cup that you mentioned, Heavyweight Hero, of course, did win the Green Mile at Methven, so has grass track form. And here's a look at the field for you for the big one on Sunday, the DG Jones Memorial. This is the place market, so he's favourite in that at $1.32. He's also favourite on the book at $2.90. So I think he deserves to be, Michael, and is clearly the one to beat. And Woodstone wouldn't be without a winning chance. Matuatana actually won his maiden, Michael, on a grass track when trained by Paul Nairn.
Yeah, he's suited to the grass, no doubt about that. And by the way, the place market's there. We're just giving you this so you can see the field. That's the key factor. Obviously, tab.co.nz to see the win market. He's $2.90 there. Only off a 10-metre handicap, small field. Blew the start last time, but he's 3 from 4 on the grass. If it doesn't rain, and I'm not sure what the weather forecast is, but if it doesn't rain, because Mott in the wet would be a different animal altogether, Greg, I think he's close to a moral. On a good track, if he steps, I think he'll just win.
Yeah, he's a very, very smart horse and definitely on the grass as well. So, Michael, Sunday Sun, $3 in the Dominion. Is that enough to entice you?
Absolutely not. This is not a market I want to be betting into just yet, Greg, because unless you're getting double figures, $10 at least for anything, it's a long way away. There's a lot of racing to go between now and then, and of course it's going to be a capacity field with lots of percentage. So not poo-pooing the market, just saying this is not one for me unless you can probably get double figures. And to be honest, Greg, if it's double figures, it's going to need to improve and beat some pretty darn good horses.
Ultimate Stride, $487 about Cracker Hill if you want to get involved in that one. A man who's doing a great job, trained his first treble at Oamaru on their big day, Hannon Day on Sunday. Matt Purvis went to 30 career wins and did this on a very, very good day at the office for him.
Put a gap on them, and the favourite goes for home. She's 5 in front from Jerry Garcia. Further away, Gold Chain, Ali Landini, Deborah's Jen up on the inside, but this is a one-act affair, and My Moments Now will make it a hat-trick for Matt Purvis, a double for Matthew Williamson, and the favourite's going to win it in an absolute cakewalk. My Moments Now bolted it.
Welcome back into your box seat. Of course, get us what you want on the show. Email us, boxseatnz@gmail.com. First Group 1 of the season. The Garrard Sire Stakes for horses that are now 3, but of course were 2. And this was to be run way back in May, but an entertaining final this was at Group 1 level. $140,000. Michael, American Dealer and David Butcher, Ray Green. This combination were able to hold off the favourite Krug.
Look, the barrier draw won the race, but so too did the drive. Uber aggressive from Butch, he said. I'm not handing up early to Krug. Forced Blair to take a 1-1. First 2 really good, third excellent, fourth a big improver. The most remarkable thing about this, that was David Butcher's first Group 1 winning drive in New Zealand. He's had one in Australia in those colours with King of Swing since 2011, Greg. Remarkable that a guy who I would rate in the top 5 drivers in the country every day of the week hadn't won a Group 1. Now, he's been injured a couple of times since 2011 at the Jewels. Great story, didn't cost a lot of money, Greg. This massively delayed series, here's a weird story for you. Of course, American Dealer was one of the first horses to qualify by winning a Young Guns heat, and the horses who probably would have been first, second and third favourites for the race had it been run in May, or close enough to it out of that field, ran first, second and third, Greg. So maybe quality is more important than the time of the year you run the race.
Yeah, 23,000 purchased by Lincoln Farms, now raced, of course, by Mark Hanover and Gordon Banks, who've been huge supporters of our industry. Here's what Ray Green had to say about the little guy.
Well, Ray, he's taken out the Sire Stakes, and he's the little horse, American Dealer, who just keeps on improving.
He's never done a thing wrong, ever. He's a real little tradesman, always has been. I just can't fault anything he's done. I saw him in front there, I thought, they'll be flat getting past him. He just keeps finding.
Were there any instructions pre-race to David Butcher to stay in front and park out a horse like Krug?
No, he knows the horse pretty well by now, so he's pretty well got it under control out there. I don't interfere in that department.
Tell me the story behind this horse, because the American-based owners aren't people who own a lot of horses with you.
No, they're new to us. Like, we sold the horse recently. Probably shouldn't have, but we did, and they've had a good run with him, and I'm sure they'll be thrilled. They've since sent us another one. We've got a 2-year-old there of theirs. They do have a lot of horses here in Australia, but and America, of course. But they're all in lockdown over there at the moment, so they'll be 3 o'clock in the morning. They'll be partying, I reckon, right now.
Ray, after next week, I presume he's going down to try and go back-to-back by taking out the 3-year-old Sire Stakes also at Addington.
Well, that's the plan. I mean, the 3-year-olds can race for some serious money, if the good ones can anyway. And he'll go for the race next week, the $200,000
Harness Million?
Yeah, Harness Million. And then we'll go south for the Sire Stakes final, hopefully. We've got to qualify yet.
While we've got you here, what's the update on the one-time New Zealand Cup favourite? He's back out to second favourite for the Cup, and copy that.
Everything's gone according to plan with him. He's trialling tomorrow at Pukekohe, and he'll go in the Spring Cup next week, and probably that Homestead G the week after. And then we'll head south. We'll go Ashburton and into the Cup.
Well, Blair, it's always disappointing to run second in a Group 1, but you couldn't be disappointed with the performance of Krug.
No, it's gone really well, Mick. You know, we really had to burn hard early to get across to the death, and then when Mark come around again, we worked overtime again, and to his credit, he's had to kick up the straight and just gone down marginally.
Did you think at any stage about the 200-metre mark you might pick up the leader?
Yeah, I did think for a brief moment I was going to get him, but I just felt Krug just come to the end of it the last sort of 10 metres, and even though he didn't tie, did come to the end of it a touch, but on the day the other horse was too good.
What we saw here 2 weeks ago, then what's happened tonight, there's a Harness Millions coming up this week. Man, these 3-year-olds have some racing in front of them, don't they?
Yeah, it's good racing too, Mick, and just shows that on the day anyone can win, and best horse turned up tonight and beat us, so it's going to be good racing, especially come those bigger races later on.
Well, Mark, it's all about faith. That was a case of the second line really costing you any winning chance.
Yeah, he went a great race, Mick, but it was always going to be hard with the 2 to beat draw on the front line, but that's racing.
The reports from the other drivers of your other 6 runners in the race, most of them seem to more or less finish in a clump.
Yeah, that's right. I think, for what they are, I think most of them were pretty happy with their performance.
Most of them, I presume, return here next Friday night. After that, are some of them on the market? Are some of them going to head back to the south? Will some stay up here?
Yeah, probably a little bit of both, Mick. I think, if there's offers about, they're always considered, and we'll see what happens. But at this stage, probably the majority will head south.
If it's all about faith, can get a front line draw, are you confident you can get revenge in the Harness Millions?
Oh, look, I got respect for the other 2. They're both very good horses, and I don't think there's a lot between them.
So that was great to get the insight of what happened in the Sire Stakes final. Of course, the inaugural Harness Million, the first of a series of races we're going to see over the next month or so. Michael comes out at the park on Friday night. It is the 5th on the program, and Krug has come up with the plum draw of Barrier 1, and he's a $1.50 dominant favourite.
Remarkably, Greg, he's actually the same odds he was last week drawing Barrier 6. Doesn't make any sense to me at all, because I think he'll lead. The horse who should be on his back is Better Call Me, who's probably no chance of running past him, and BD Joe, if he happened to sneak in there, is also no chance of running past him. I don't see how he's just not a complete moral, Greg. American Dealer comes off the second line, so that negates his chances for me. It's all about faith. I said to Mark Purdon, hey, I've got a new show this week, brother. Can you get across Krug at the start? Help us out here for the punters. He said no. So, Greg, unless he underperforms, he'll win.
All right, so he's $1.50. He'll certainly be through many multis. It's all about faith, of course, led from the outside draw in the Young Guns final, but judging by what Mark said to Michael, that won't be happening in this one. An American Dealer, the winner of the Sires, is an $18 hope. The other feature on the night, of course, is the Spring Cup. We've been talking about Copy That a lot, and he has come up with Barrier 8. He actually came up with the 9, but with the scratching of Princess Tiffany. That means, Michael, all importantly, he comes in to the outside of the front row, which is crucial.
Absolutely crucial. Could have been behind Bella Montana at the start, and David Butcher would have been outside him, and he would have been smart enough to keep him down there. And Bella Montana's galloped away a few times. Princess Tiffany comes out of the race. She's heading to Victoria next week. She just had a longer trip north than they hoped for. Nothing wrong with her. I don't agree with this rule, Greg. I think it's a wrong rule, and I think harness racing should change it. Because in a mobile, you can never move forward, and I'm totally fine with that. Where you draw is where you stay. Why is it different for a stand? I don't understand. I'm not saying copy that. I want him to start from barrier 1 on the second line. I don't care where he starts from. It doesn't affect my life at all. But I think that it's open to manipulation because, say, for example, that was Spankham and Mark Purdon scratched Princess Tiffany and Spankham got to the outside of the front line. People would say, well, hold on, that's not right. I don't see, and there's no other code in the world where you can move your barrier draw by scratching a horse. I don't think it should happen. And I don't think it should happen in harness racing, different for standing starts or mobiles. The rule needs to be universal.
All right, fair enough, Michael. We'll see if the powers that be learn and listen to what you've had to say there. So let's have a look at the trial from Pookie on Saturday. Michael, this is exactly what you want to see with Copy That. He got back in the field, home in 26 and a piece, and when he's up against horses like On the Cards and Bella Montana, it's a good guide, isn't it?
It is, because he could well be back in the field this week. As we said, he comes to the outside of the front line, but even if they all step evenly or a couple step in front of him, he might have to come from off the speed. We know he can do that. Clearly he's a horse who's not being hurt by any of the racing, Greg. I think he'll probably win, but $1.50 is short enough when you consider you could also get $1.50 for Krug, who's going to be leading. Race is a really interesting question, Greg. If you were going to rate, because there's so much hyperbole in Australia about a whole bunch of their horses headlined by Ride High, if you're going to rate the 5 best horses in Australasia, I'm not going to get you to do all 5, who's number 1? Who's the top dog? Because if you ask South Islanders, they probably say Self-Assured. Plenty of North Islanders might say Copy That. If you ask people in New South Wales, they'll probably say King of Swing. There's no doubts people in Perth will say Chicago Bull. You ask people in Victoria, they've probably got 2 choices, Lochinvar Art or Ride High. It's actually good for the industry, Greg, but I'm not sure there's a definitive answer.
No, I totally agree. Let's have a look at Ride High. I've never seen him in the flesh. I've seen him on the track though, and some of his times, Michael, have just been stunning. Of course, Kemba Frenning was his regular pilot, and now Kate Gath does the steering, and well, he just rolls. This is when he went 149 mile rate, Michael, and I know he's not beating much, but sometimes you just got to trust your eye.
Well, I agree. If he's going 49, he's not going to need to go much faster. His series of wins have been incredibly dramatic. I'm not sure that any of the other horses I just mentioned could be winning consistently by this much, but I'm also not sure that this horse can just come out and do something similar against Self-Assured or King of Swing or even Copy That. I think it's really interesting, Greg, that we have all these horses who are so good. We're probably not going to see them in the same space until potentially the Hunter Cup into the Miracle Mile, February into March. But when we're going to first see Lochinvar Art against Ride High, it was going to be this weekend, but it's not because Ride High is not turning up, is the Victoria Cup on October the 10th. So that'll answer a mini question because some of the New South Wales horses will be there. It does build the appetite, Greg, though, for when we're going to see the whole lot. Very similar to the North Island, South Island thing. It's exciting because we're keeping our best horses almost in individual silos.
Yeah, we certainly are, Michael, and I tell you what, I will answer that next week, and we might ask a few other scribes as well to send in who they think their top 5, including some of our friends from across the Tasman. We're going to wrap things up, Michael. I knew it'd be a busy show. We'll try and pack a whole lot more in 7 days' time. Big thank you to our stable of sponsors. Remember, if you want to contact us, boxseatnz@gmail.com. We've got Winton, we've got Addington, Alexandra Park and Banks Peninsula, so plenty of harness racing for people around the country. Thanks for your time, Michael.
Great to be back, Gregory. Don't forget, check out hrnz.co.nz. They have way more previews than they used to, and video previews for all the race meetings coming up. Punt responsibly, stay safe. Well, great to be back here on the box seat. 32 more shows to go.